Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much, Michael, Vivek, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to speak. And yeah, let me share a little bit of what we're doing at Nestlé in our transformation journey that we just embarked towards sustainability and actually beyond, as I will be hopefully able to show. I don't need to explain to anybody here, I guess, that we on this planet are exceeding planetary boundaries, not only on climate change, but also on nitrous and phosphorus cycle, on biodiversity. And this is not new. We know that for decades, and at Nestle, we've been acting on it for decades as well. We've been reducing our greenhouse gas emissions in our manufacturing sites, our water withdrawal, our energy consumption. We have increased the amount of ingredients that we're sourcing from deforestation-free sources over the past decade and actually longer. But we know that this is not enough. We know now that this is not enough. Looking at our own operations, as you will see, is important. We need to go beyond looking at deforestation-free ingredients. Yeah, is good, but at the end, we really need to get from where we are today, having emissions, having impact on this planet, to coming into a mode of regeneration and rebuilding a food system at the end of the day. And if you look at, for example, the emissions that we as Nestlé are causing every year, you see that the biggest part of it is actually from our ingredients. It's almost 3/3. It's not directly in our hands. I mean, of course, it's in our hands what we buy and where we buy it from, but the footprint is not generated in our factories. That's only 7%. That's the emissions that we directly cause when we are heating steam, when we are generating friction or whatever it needs to process food. And this is what I just showed in the slide before that we've been acting on for the last couple of decades. So we obviously need to go beyond that. We need to address everything along the value chain, packaging included, logistics included, and that's why we have made bold commitments to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to basically zero in 2050, including all the ingredients, including all Scope 3 emissions that are linked to our products. But even there, it's not enough, because if we go to zero, at the end, we are hopefully eventually sustainable. But what we need to do is actually to get into this regenerative space here, where we kind of repair some of the harm that has been done in the past. How do we do that? Or let's say, what are the things that we are looking at? Because greenhouse gas emissions is obviously just one thing, but it's not everything. So also water, biodiversity, other indicators in the environmental space are important to us, but also communities and society. Not to forget our consumers, who we want to deliver nutritious food and that is affordable and has a good taste and joy. 5 pillars that we're working on, starting with the most important, which is about the ingredients, as we saw, to move to regenerative agriculture. And here some of the key ingredients for us, obviously milk, coffee, cocoa, and there are ideas and there are many approaches to get to net zero farms and regenerative agriculture. And it's like what Raymond just said, you know, look what is happening outside there. Many of the technologies are already there, are already being used and applied in many places, but not necessarily in our supply chains. Then our portfolio, moving away from animal-based to plant-based feedstock and proteins, for example. Still continue to work on our own manufacturing, reduce energy consumption, rethink how we build our processes, and only the avoidable rest replace with energy and consumption that is at least neutral to the planet. Same can be said for logistics, switching transport modes to rail, to ship, making sure that vehicles are full, not only when they leave our factory with our goods, but also when they're coming in, and vice versa. And then packaging, which is very close to my heart because this is what I'm really focusing on in my daily work, and that's why I will dig a little bit deeper into the building blocks for our packaging circularity journey. So about 3 years ago, we made public commitments about our packaging journey, saying that, well, circularity is the big solution to give materials a value, to make sure that they're not ending up in nature, in uncontrolled landfills, or systematically being dumped into waterways and the sea. That's why we're going to use only recyclable materials by 2025, which is a huge job to do, I can tell you. I'm working 150% every day, more or less, just on the new materials that we need to introduce in order to live up to this commitment. At the same time, we're also reducing our virgin plastic consumption, because it is kind of the icon of linear economy, into introducing recycled plastics or recycled materials in our packaging in general. And all this can only obviously work when you have the right infrastructure for that in place, which is not the core of our business, but still something that we can engage and that we have a role to play. So making our packaging circular, first of all, reducing as much as we can. Just have the material that is absolutely necessary to protect food and to fulfill its purpose. We call it fit-for-purpose packaging. Introducing recycled plastics to reduce the dependency from crude oil based. Then, inventing, reinventing, bringing eventually back some of the reuse and refill things that our grandparents used to have. This is actually not so easy to achieve, especially when you then look at what is really the environmental performance, what are the greenhouse gas emissions associated to transport back and forth, cleaning, and so on. The business case, the environmental business case for that, the economic one are not so easy to find. New materials, paper-based materials, other bio-based materials, sometimes not so easy again to find the right properties that give the right level of protection to the very perishable foodstuff that we're typically using. So that's another big area where we are researching and introducing new. And then, like I said a moment ago, investing also into the infrastructure, making sure that packaging materials after use are being collected in many European countries, thanks to EPR systems, yellow bag type of systems, something that is coming easily, and there is a lot of political will to get it done and to get it achieved. But in many developing countries, not so easy at all, obviously. And here it's also up to us to join, to collaborate, to find others who have the same pain, the same interest to succeed, and do things that are not mandatory, but on a voluntary basis. And we have many examples for activities in which we are involved, from voluntary EPR systems in countries like Ukraine, very unfortunately a little bit on hold currently, to collecting back coffee capsules to bring them into recycling, and the spent coffee grounds into a biological cycle. Consumer behavior, also pretty much a driver for this, because only packaging that consumers putting in the right bin and into the right pathway obviously can be properly recycled and put into a circular economy. And again, here we have a role to play, because we are informing consumers, we have on-pack information, we have information on web pages, and consumers see these and act accordingly. So let me close up with a few messages of what we would need from innovation, from inventors, from young startups. Obviously, anything is welcome that is helping to decarbonize agriculture. There is foodstuff that we need and that we have to use for our products, and to get it at the lowest, or ideally even zero impacts, is really what we need. recipes, providing taste and nutrients at low emissions. Particular focus on protein sources, on vegetable protein sources, and my colleague Christoph, who is here with me today, can speak about that also in the breaks and give more insights. Sustainable bio-feedstocks for energy and packaging materials, not competing with food, not contributing to further deforestation, but ideally even being regenerative. And circularity systems with high environmental performance. That's the example I said about refill reuse, which is sometimes not so easy to really find a solution that has a high and extremely high environmental performance. So urgency is increasing. The transformation that we as a company have to go through is absolutely necessary. And I heard the saying the other day, Uber yourself before you get Kodaked, and that's what we're trying to do. Reinvent ourselves and move away from where we are today into something that is really regenerating. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian.